think we're on Xfinity. We're not on Xfinity.
But you are on the internet.
But you will, yeah, you will. So the recording of the meeting will be posted on the internet, so you can share that with your brothers. And there's actually experience.
Beyond John.
Just right tonight.
Hey, you kidding?
Because I know they're not
Yeah,
watching. It's Friday. The miners here. All right, you remember what you do?
Yeah.
Hang it, and then call the regular meeting of this Parker City Council for Monday, June 5th. Connect. All right. So you gotta push your chair up a little bit, and whenever you're ready.
Just like lightly.
Well, you can medium. You can hit it.
Okay.
You can hit it so people hear.
I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Park Ridge City Council for Monday, June 5th. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor Maloney,
Here.
Honorable Mayor Nate Visco Cameron,
Here.
Alderman Moran,
Here.
Alderman Melissus,
Here.
Alderman Wilkening, here, Alderman Schubert,
Here.
Alderman Meladosian,
Here.
Alderman Mazuka,
Here.
all present.
Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nate is joining us for the early part of the meeting. He said he has some other mayoral things to do, so he can't stay for the entire meeting, but he's going to join us through the mayor's report, and then we have a proclamation that will thoroughly embarrass him before we let him go. First on the agenda is approval of minutes. I would ask for a motion to approve the regular city council meeting minutes from May 15th, 2017.
So moved.
Are there any questions or additions? Out to the audience, any questions or comments from the audience? And back to council. First signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I abstain, Mr. Mayor, since I wasn't there.
Thank you. Alderman Melissus abstains, but motion is approved. Next, we'll go on to the reports of city officials. First up is mayor's report. We have the first few items are the appointments to boards and commissions, and I would ask the city council is there an objection to doing A through E in one motion?
No, sir.
Okay, then I would ask for the following motion to approve the following appointments to boards and commissions. A, Jeff Frankowiak, Community Health Commission, new appointment for an unexpired term ending September 30th, 2017, and a new 3-year term ending September 30th, 2020. And Jim Arjonas, O'Hare Airport Commission, reappointment for a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2020. And Jack Barnett, O'Hare Airport Commission, new appointment for a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2020. And Rebecca Little, Youth Services Commission, new appointment for a 3-year term ending July 31st, 2020. And finally, Tracy Holmes, Appearance Commission, new appointment for a 5-year term ending May 31st, 2022. Second. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, out to the audience. Any questions or comments on these individuals? And back to council for final comment. We can do this with a voice, we thought, yeah. Okay, we do this with a voice vote as well. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. I know Jeff is here. Anybody else who, and I know Jack is here. Anybody else here? Oh, looks like a lot of people. All right.
And
Can
Rebecca.
everybody stand up, maybe just introduce yourself? You can even do it from where you're standing.
Tracy Holmes. Miss Jean.
Jeff Frankowiak. Jack Barnett.
Good. Welcome.
Thank you. Item number 2, I would ask for motion to approve to adjourn to closed session at the conclusion of our meeting pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C1, appointment, employment compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2C3, selection, appointment of a person to fill public office.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, just as a point of clarification, we're continuing to talk about the city manager, so that would be the focus of this closed session, these motions. Any questions? Seeing none, out to the audience, any questions or comments on the motion? And back to council. Can we do a roll call?
We need to do a roll call, yes, sir. Mayor Maloney,
Do I vote on this?
do you vote on this? He does not, I'm sorry. Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Melissus.
Yes.
Alderman Wilkening.
Yes.
Alderman Schubert.
Yes.
Alderman Melodosian.
Yes.
Alderman Mazuka.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
I keep forgetting this.
Next is, I'd ask for a motion to approve the mayoral appointment by city council confirmation of Martin Joyce to fill the vacancy of 7th Ward Alderman.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. So just, I'll kind of start this off and open it for questions. We went through interviews here last week. There were 4 candidates from the 7th Ward, and the committee selected Marty Joyce, who I know is here this evening. Are there any questions? Yes, Alderman Mazuka.
I have a question for Mr. Joyce,
Okay.
if he's here.
If you, Marty, could you maybe come up to the podium?
Mr. Joyce,
Yes.
it mentions on your resume that you are currently working at HDR Engineering.
That's correct.
They do not do any business with the city of Park Ridge,
That's correct.
and should they bid on any city of Park Ridge business, you will recuse yourself from a vote.
I will.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions in general or for Mr. Joyce? Thank you. We'll go out to the audience. Any questions or comments? And back to council for final comment. Okay, can we have a roll call? Roll call. Cheryl, could you do a roll call?
Yes. Alderman Melissus,
Yes.
Alderman Wilkening,
Yes.
Alderman Schubert,
Yes.
Alderman Meldosian,
Yes.
Alderman Mazuka.
Yes.
And Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Motion carries 6.
Congratulations. And now we will move on to to item number 4 under the mayor's report, which is the administration of the oath of office to Martin Joyce, 7th Ward Alderman. And that Betty Henneman, our city clerk, will be doing that.
Martin Joyce, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Martin Joyce,
I, Martin Joyce,
having been appointed to the office of Alderman
having been appointed to the office of Alderman
of the 7th Ward
of the 7th Ward
in the city of Park Ridge,
in the city of Park Ridge,
county of Cook,
county of Cook,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of 7th Ward Alderman
the duties of the office of 7th Ward Alderman
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
And I have no doubt about that. This is your badge of office.
Okay?
It looks very official, and you can use it any way you want.
Is it recognized by?
It's recognized all over the city. I have the personal privilege of swearing in Marty, because I keep standing up here and saying I've known these people for a long time, but I've known these people for a long time.
That's a good
Marty
thing.
went to school with my sons and so forth. So it's very nice to have you on board with another good office.
Thank you.
if there's anything you would want to say, otherwise you can take your seat up here at the horse show.
I'm proud to represent the best ward in the city of Park Ridge.
Throwing it out there.
Call the question.
All right, now I have a proclamation to make in honor of the gentleman here to my right, so we're going to come down to the podium. So this is a proclamation in recognition of Nate Vusko Cameron, mayor for a day. Whereas Nate Vusko Cameron has lived in Park Ridge and contributed positively to his community through his hard work at Lincoln Middle School, through athletics, as well as a member of his family. And whereas Nate is a committed member of his Warriors baseball team, working hard to improve both as a pitcher and second baseman, as well as a devoted basketball player, who I can personally attest to his commitment to excellence on the basketball court. And whereas Nate's love of flying has been a huge part of his life and has pushed Nate to set one of his goals to be to take flying lessons and obtain his pilot's license before his driver's license. And whereas Nate shows a true love of animals with particular devotion to his own miniature golden doodle, Avatar. And whereas his teachers at Lincoln Middle School have identified Nate as a leader and positive role model for the school, who always has an encouraging word for his classmates and demonstrates an uncanny ability to positively impact each and everyone around him. And whereas Nate, along with his twin brother Zach and older brother Andrew, can constantly be seen around Park Ridge working to make this community better and striving to better themselves. And whereas Nate truly embodies the characteristics of a leader of which his family and this community can be proud. Now therefore, I, Marty Maloney, Mayor of the City of Park Ridge in the County of Cook and State of Illinois, do hereby proclaim this day as Nate Vusko Cameron Mayor for a day in the City of Park Ridge, and recognize Nate as a leader in our community and grant all rights and powers that accompany the role of Mayor for a day. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Park Ridge to be affixed this 5th day of June, 2017. All right. I was asking if there's anyone to say any very quickly. But, and I guess as mayor for the day, he gets to pick and choose what he stays for and what he doesn't. It doesn't come with this job. But I will also say that if Marty Joyce hadn't shown up tonight, Nate, you might be 7th Ward Alderman as well. It's a good thing he came. But thank you for coming and congratulations. That concludes the mayor's report. Now we'll move on to the city council report. Alderman Mazuka.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. City attorney.
No report.
Thank you. City clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The city clerk is petitioning the council to approve to adjourn to closed session to review and approve closed session minutes from its September 6, 2016 meeting, October 17, 2016, and May 22nd, 2017 meetings pursuant to the Illinois compiled statutes.
Second.
Are there any questions? Yes, Alderman Moses.
So can we clarify to what end? So is this to release them or to
No,
do
just
one?
to approve them,
To approve, okay.
not release. That's a different category.
Any other questions? Out to the audience. Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, back to council. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, we can. We'll start with Alderman Melissus,
No.
Alderman Wilkening. Yes. Alderman Schubert,
Yes.
Alderman Melodosian,
Yes.
Alderman Mazuka,
Yes.
Alderman Joyce. And Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Anything else, Betty?
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. City manager.
I just had two quick things that I wanted to give everyone a reminder that vehicle sticker sales are ongoing right now. And the final day to purchase the stickers at the current price is June 16th. So City Hall will be open on Saturday, June 10th from 8 to noon. If anybody wants to get the sticker at that time. But starting on Saturday, June 17th, the prices go from $45 to $70. So reminder to get in and get the sticker by June 16th. Or also you could have you could put it in the mail, and as long as it's postmarked by June 16th, you're covered there too. But after the 16th, the prices go up.
And do we know when if someone doesn't have it, when they can actually get a ticket for it?
We'll usually give I don't like to say this, a grace period, a couple of days after the due date. Encourage people to come get them.
Is the due date? When is the due date?
June
June
15th, I believe it
15th.
is.
So,
Yeah.
so you purchase, the
you even
price
get it
goes up,
June
but you need to have it by.
Right.
Okay. So, please tell your friends and neighbors, inevitably, every year, people get very frustrated that the price goes up, or they get a ticket from the police department shortly after. So, everyone here, take care of it, let your friends and neighbors know, and those of you watching it on home on TV, please do the same.
Great, thanks. And then the other thing is the city has been working on a project to allow water billing payments to be made online. And currently, we are soliciting residents for a pilot program. We have the system just about finalized, but we wanted to run a pilot just to have numerous different scenarios run through the system live. So there's a link on the city's website on the front page news section to sign up for the pilot. And once we get a certain number of people to sign up, we will shut down the pilot, let that run for a month or two, and then the functionality will be available to everyone. So that's all I have.
Are there any questions for the city manager? Thank you, Joe. Next is a consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of those items unless an alderman so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Tonight's consent agenda is as follows. Works, approve a purchase order for bike racks for the Summit Metro Station to FH Passion in the amount of $11,310. Under Finance and Budget, approve fiscal year 17 warrants for period ending May 30th, 2017 in the amount of $498,451.97, reviewed by Alderman Melissus. Number 2, approve fiscal year 18 warrants for a period ending May 31st, 2017 in the amount of $1,324,843.10, reviewed by Alderman Melissus. Number 3, reject all bids received in response to request for bid number FN-FY17-03 for citation management services. Number 4, approve a purchase order increase for high excess liability pool help. Number 5, approve fiscal year 17 year-end budget amendments. And number 6, approve a budget amendment to the general fund for the bike task force. I'll entertain a motion to approve, the motion as read.
Second.
Thank you. Is there anything that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll go out to the audience. If anybody's here to speak on one of those items, now would be the time to do so, because we won't otherwise be stopping where they are listed on the agenda, so there wouldn't be a chance to talk at that point, so now would be the time. Seeing no one, we'll bring back to council for final comment. And roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Alderman Wilkening,
Yes.
Alderman Schubert,
Yes.
Meladosian,
Yes.
Mazuka,
Yes.
Joyce,
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Melissus.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next is citizens who wish to address the city council on a non-agenda item. Yes, ma'am.
Judy Barkley, 524 Cortlandt. I think the time has come to talk about or look at the possibility of impact or bedroom taxes. We cannot continually keep increasing our population. Every time a home is torn down, we take down 2-bedroom homes and we build 4- and 5-bedroom homes. Every time there seems to be a commercial site, we knock that down and we build a multifamily site. That contributes to the demise of our schools. They are overcrowded as it is. The police and fire department, that's an impact on them. And traffic and congestion, I won't even say anything about that. Each time this needs to be addressed, and there are multiple sites still available for development. I'm talking commercial sites now. And every time we do a text amendment from commercial to residential, we impact the population of this community. So I hope that procedures and regulations would consider taking this up at a near future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Joan Sandrick, Fifth Ward resident. I used to get the Park Ridge e-alerts once a week, and it seems like about a month ago I stopped getting them. I think that's about the same time there was a new computer system put into effect. Is that why? Do I need to re-sign up for them? Thoughts on that?
This is the first time hearing
Yeah,
that.
that's the first time hearing about it too. There shouldn't have been an impact with upgrades that were made. I'll have to check on it and report back, but I hadn't heard anybody else bring the topic up, so I'm not aware.
Either
of
that
it.
or there haven't been any.
There have been.
Well, yeah, there
There-
over that
It
period of time.
usually
there have
listed bids and all manner of interesting little tidbits. So.
been. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. We'll definitely look into it and report back next week.
On another note, there used to be a right turn arrow on northbound Cumberland onto Toohey. It is gone. It helped with the flow of traffic, and I'm kind of curious as to why it was removed. And then a couple weeks ago when I mentioned signs, I pointed out the stop sign at Belle Plaine and Cortland, which has multiple add-ons. Frankly, it's clutter. I did email to Northwestern University Center for Public Safety to ask if there's any data that suggests that all these add-ons are effective or whether they're just what I feel they are, is clutter. They have no information one way or the other, unfortunately. With all the talk about signs and whatnot, this is just really nasty looking, and I don't think it serves any purpose. And I think a stop sign, if you want to put a red light on top of it that flashes, fine, but do you need all the other stuff on there? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Just as a follow-up, she mentioned the light at Cumberland and Toohey. Was there a change that we made
There was
there?
a change. The police requested IDOT, if you want to follow.
We got complaints regarding the new Formula Fitness. A lot of people, it's a 2-lane. The one lane is a turn left only, and the other one is to go straight or turn. Well, with the arrow that was there, if you were people going to the Formula Fitness, would stop and not turn, therefore causing the people behind them to beep their horns and they get real angry. So we asked them to please remove it because we now have a population of traffic going straight than we did before. And that was the rationale behind it, so we wouldn't have any altercations between motorists that wanted to go to Formula Fitness and didn't want to turn. So that was the only change that we made to address the traffic there based on the complaints that I received from people.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other citizens who wish to address City Council on a non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move into reports of boards, commissions, and committees. Up first is Planning and Zoning, Alderman Wilkening.
No report.
Next is Zoning Board of Appeals, Alderman Marine.
One item this evening, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Park Ridge regarding expiration of site plan approval.
Second.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Alderman. About 2 months ago, the Committee of the Whole, the PNR, looked at our expiration dates for various types of land use approvals. We saw that special use approval expires in 2 years. Variances, the suggestion was to keep that on a case-by-case basis. Plan developments, which are special uses, also have a 2-year expiration. The one thing that was missing in the zoning ordinance was site plan review. There was no expiration for that. Subsequent to that Committee of the Whole, the Planning and Zoning Commission conducted a public hearing on a proposed amendment. The recommendation is to add a 2-year expiration site plan approval that would be renewable by the City Council for 1 year. So the ordinance is attached, the minutes of the meetings are attached, and if you have any questions, be happy to
Okay,
entertain
thank you.
them.
Yes, Alderman
This
Marine.
would prevent issues like over on Fairview where they started building and now it's just sort of sitting. Is that true? It would
Right.
it would motivate them to.
True, they have 2 years, and I think both staff and the Committee of the Whole, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, felt the 2-year timeframe is appropriate because sometimes there's issues with financing or weather or something else falls through. I understand Fairview's been going on for some time. I'll also mention, we do have expirations for building permits as well, so once they do get a building permit, then it's falls into a different category where there's a new expiration.
We should note that this rule would only apply prospectively to new applications. It would not apply to existing development that has already received site plan approval.
And that would be probably just Gillick Plaza, is the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Any other questions? Seeing none, out to the audience. Any questions or comments from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Pat Livensparger, 413 Cortland, and I have a question. Well, I guess it's two. When this proposal was presented to Planning and Zoning, the recommended language was written that if work on the proposed development has not begun within 2 years from the date the site plan was issued, the site plan review shall become null and void, and then the rest that was added on there. And they can author a 1 year. That's what Planning and Zoning looked at. That's what Planning and Zoning approved. Yet when you look at the ordinance before you, it says limitations on site plan approvals. If work on any project which is granted site plan approval after the effective date of this ordinance has not begun within 2 years from the date site plan approval was granted, it's more convoluted. Our ordinances usually read exactly how the one that was proposed to Planning and Zoning, because when you get into the applicability section of our zoning ordinance, it covers those things. And I have a copy of it here, transition rules. If you could pass it around, please. Thank you, Jim. It covers those things that when you have an ordinance change, and usually all our ordinances say is the date that it was approved. And then when you get into the ordinance that is written, if you look at section 3, it says current site plan approvals are exempt and superseding effect. Planning and Zoning never looked at that particular wording. Just talked about the proposed amendment. Now, I know for a moment it was mentioned at the cow, and Attorney Simon said that he thought, well, people might be vested in that, and that they might have done work and whatever other things he said. However, the zoning ordinance in those transition rules that I gave you is pretty clear what the entitlements are. The entitlements are previously issued building permits, previously granted special uses and variances. Those can go ahead. But then you come down to pending applications. If an application is pending, which is exactly what a site plan is, it's part of an application. They have not been issued a building permit, and they have not been given a special use or a variance. It's just a site plan. So our ordinance covers how to handle that. If you have, as was mentioned earlier, like Fairview, a site that has been languishing when they told planning and zoning they'd be finished with the whole project when it was phased in 24 months, they should have to come back and get their site plan approved. They can do that. They're not prohibited from doing that. But to say all other past site plans are exempt from this, what if you had someone from Executive Office Plaza deciding they want to build their 168 condo units? They have an approved site plan to do that. Of course, we've built townhomes and Whole Foods. So do you have to hold that site forever? That you can't allow anybody to build because it already has an approved site plan for it? It just doesn't make sense. State statutes are silent. They don't say a site plan is an entitlement. If someone hasn't built on so many years on their site plan, why would you give a 5-year-old site plan, a site plan that was approved in 2005 before our current ordinance? Does that mean they can come in and build what they had approved? Does the city have to hold that site for them? Or can you allow another site plan to be approved for the same site? Just because they've kind of disappeared, you kind of sort of think. You know, there are many things that were going to be built in Park Ridge that had approved site plans. What if they show up? So the zoning ordinance in its applicability section covers how you handle transitions from a new site plan from the old. I don't know that it's necessary to state that. We don't state that in any other thing that we've said. So I think there needs to be a way to make this not conflict with that part of the ordinance. And if they have a vesting, we're pretty clear what our vestings are in Park Ridge, what our entitlements are to be protected if the ordinance changes. Simply sitting on a site plan, the way it's written now, isn't one of them. And to add this, and again, planning and zoning never saw Section 3 and Section 4 and never discussed it. And there's a change in the ordinance that they approved. So I don't understand it, and maybe you could have someone explain it to me, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Moran, I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Were you were in attendance when the meeting, this
It was planning and zoning, not ZBA.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know if this is.
You were there.
No,
I don't think anybody was there. It was a simple 5-minute meeting. They said, oh yeah, this is just like every other amendment, and it's a good idea. I'm not saying this time limit is a bad idea. It's an excellent idea. I have a problem with Section 3, Section 4, and the fact that the text was changed from what they approved.
Two things.
Yeah, Jim.
Okay. First, I'd just like to address the issue of the pending applications. There is no conflict with the ordinance. The ordinance reads, Section 3, the approved site plans. It's not a pending application. The pending application would apply to situations if we already had an application in our pipeline now that was awaiting review and approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have none. If we did, then certainly what Pat passed around would apply, but the ordinance doesn't address that. The ordinance is addressing site plans, not the application, but the actual approval. And as I said before, I think the only situation we have outstanding, at least that I'm aware, would be Gillick Plaza. As far as the Section 3, that language, we did discuss that here at the council. I was not at the Planning and Zoning Commission. I took a brief review of it, the minutes and the video. If that wasn't discussed, okay, fine. It was inserted certainly by me and review of the city attorney. We can add things at this level, as long as it's consistent with really what was discussed and the spirit of what was discussed. So it doesn't have to be verbatim language, what was passed up from the ZBA or Planning and Zoning Commission. You still have the option to alter what came forward or add something that came forward. If you wish to delete it, then go ahead. We can delete it, and the second reading would be would be missing that, but I think it's prudent to leave it in.
Thank you.
I thought that pending application applied to building permits.
No, there's no. That the building permit's a separate issue. I mean, it's a separate article in the municipal code. There is a building permit expiration as well, but this is just the site plan. All this is addressing is site plan. And we don't have any pending applications anyway. And if we did, this would apply. You're right, this would apply. But what this addresses is approved site plans.
Well, then the E and F, how does that
Pat?
apply?
We're-
I'm just
we're
waiting
not-
for an
no, but
answer.
we're not going to get, you've asked
I'm
your
not
questions, Jim.
arguing, I'm
No, but
asking
that's-
for an
but you-
answer.
You're speaking to him, you need to speak to me.
Oh,
You've
I'm
asked
sorry.
But you've asked your questions, we're not going to do it back and forth.
I'm sorry.
We're not going to do that.
I'm
So are
sorry.
there anything else that hasn't been answered by Director Brown?
I don't think he's addressed the entitlements of building permits, and, so you're saying that a site plan is an entitlement, even though it's not listed in the ordinance as one?
If
Yeah,
you
I
could
mean-
speak, if you could speak to that, you feel free.
Is it an entitlement? I think to a certain extent it vests developer rights, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Langen, 1924 Canfield, and I'll try and be brief and at the risk of going down a slippery slope. When the ordinance was constructed, there were considered land entitlements. Those land entitlements included what was described as legislative action. So, for example, a special use or a variance, which goes through a board or commission. One goes through one goes through the other. So a board or commission. And that board or commission makes a recommendation to the city council. That city council takes action on that legislation, which then becomes ordinance. Ordinance then by its very nature does become an entitlement. It was granted through legislation, through the city council, and through that approval. Site plans don't go through a legislative body. Their approval ends at the administrative level. And so the way it was explained when the ordinance was constructed and then through the unfortunate events of a particular piece of property, that distinction was never really clarified. So I think that some of the questions about a site plan, I think they're still hanging out there. I think a 2-year limit is long overdue. I think there are plenty of site plans approved by planning and zoning recently and in many years past. Some never actually came to fruition, and they just, were kind of hanging out there. And I think many years ago, we asked if that was something that could be looked at. But when it is addressed in the zoning ordinance, it's not necessarily addressed as a land entitlement because there was never any legislative action taken on it. And so if there was any type of legal action or anything like that, it was never addressed that way when the ordinance was constructed because there is no state statute that supports it as a land use issue. The issues that we address in our zoning ordinance are specifically addressed by state statute, special uses and variances and things of that nature. And they have always had an expiration. A variance has a 12-month expiration. If no work or permit's been pulled in 12 months, they have to come back and reapply. Same with, I think building permits have 18 months or whatever they are, and special uses as well. So I'm happy to see this, but I don't know that we actually clarified the distinction of what a site plan actually is, if it's an entitlement or if it's just part of an approval in a much greater process. So I think maybe that might be what Mrs. Livensparger was trying to get at was we never actually made that distinction with a site plan when other issues came up. And I know those issues are long behind us, but the answer was never provided as to where is that distinction. So when we're looking to then codify a time limit on this, like we do the other land use entitlements that require legislative action, they were never there was never that distinction made between a site plan that ended as an administrative action and the ones that actually take legislative action that then become an entitlement. And those entitlements come with an expiration. So I think
I hope I explained that a little differently, and if there's a better answer now with that explanation, it's certainly welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, back to council for final comment. Yes, Alderman Zuko.
I actually have a question, if you would allow. For the city attorney, Section 3, if that was stricken from the ordinance as proposed, would that have any real effect here? As I read Section 3, it's creating a blanket exemption from provisions of the ordinance based on a date, but it seems unnecessary because the statement on the limitations on site plan reviews basically says that it only applies to approvals after the effective date of the ordinance. So why have it in there? Can we just strike Section 3 and still have the same impact without creating a confusion or a potential loophole?
The language in the text of the amendment to the code, where it does say that it'll apply to site plan approval after the effective date of the ordinance, serves the same effect, serves the same purpose. So, Section 3 is unnecessary insofar as that it serves the same purpose.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to strike Section 3 from the ordinance.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded. Mark, do you want to give any further, other than what you just did?
Don't need it, less confusion.
Okay. Any questions on the motion? Yes.
Make your, it's implied, I'm assuming that we're just gonna renumber everything thereafter.
Right. Any other questions? Seeing none, out to the audience on the motion made by Alderman Mazuka. Seeing none, back to council. Can we do a roll call on the motion?
Alderman Schubert,
Yes.
Alderman Milidosian,
Yes.
Mazuka,
Yes.
Joyce,
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Melissus,
Yes.
motion passes.
We have the motion as amended in front of us. We are at questions and/or comments here. Anybody have anything else? Seeing none, so we're going to be voting on the motion as most recently amended. Can we have a roll call, please?
Alderman Milidosian,
Yes.
Alderman Mazuka,
Yes.
Joyce,
Yes.
Moran,
Yes.
Yes.
Wilkening, Schubert,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Anything else, John? John? Anything else, Alderman Marine?
That concludes ZBA.
Thank you. Liquor License Review Board, we have no report this evening. O'Hare Airport Commission?
Mr. Mayor, if you could give the report, I think you were at the
Sure.
meeting.
There was a O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission meeting on last Friday morning. The primary topic was the third test of the Fly Quiet rotation. We're currently undergoing the second test now. I know I've heard, and I know my colleagues have heard as well from people who are not happy with the test. I voted on behalf of Park Ridge no on Friday, as did District 64, the other Park Ridge governmental body that's represented there. We both voted no. We were joined by a few other communities, but the motion passed. So they will be going into this third test, and the biggest component, the biggest thing that changes between what we are experiencing now and what we will be experiencing under that third test is the diagonal runways will not be in use. So that will be more noise. It will be more noise for Park Ridge. And I'll say all aspects, or all parts of Park Ridge. One of the reasons that I voted no is that what the Fly Quiet program is supposed to do is give relief to some areas, or give relief to all of us at certain points. So you have a week where maybe you have more noise, but then you have 2 or 3 weeks where you have less noise. But that, we have not seen that here in Park Ridge. We've seen pretty much noise consistently throughout the 12-week tests. And what it's also lacked is predictability. One of the things that we, and I know everybody, I'm not speaking, I'm not breaking new ground here, that we've noticed is the headings change. As planes are departing O'Hare, they're hanging a sharp left, and they're heading north, and they're banking over Park Ridge, and we all know planes that are departing and banking make a lot more noise than others. So that was the primary reason for my voting no, is that we didn't see a reduction in noise, and we did not see an increase in predictability. So, but we lost. So,
Any other communities vote no as well?
yeah, there were a few. Elmhurst was.
But Chicago controls the majority of the seats on.
Yeah, but yes, Chicago controls a large number of seats, and there are communities that will directly benefit from the decommissioning and the closing of the diagonal runways. For example, Mount Prospect, Arlington Heights. The person that runs the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission previously was the mayor of Arlington Heights. It's currently the mayor of Mount Prospect. And those two communities benefit. I know it's shocking, but those two communities benefit significantly. But there were others, and frankly, there were a number of residents from Park Ridge that were there. A few of them spoke. The commissioner of the O'Hare, our O'Hare Airport Commission, Jim Arjonas, was there, and he and I we actually were joined by more communities than we have been in the past. So there are other communities that are not happy with these flight quiet tests. So for whatever that's worth, that's a silver lining, I guess.
And should we talk about the additional governmental body that may be interested in becoming a member?
Yes, District 207, I mentioned District 64 voted no with us. I didn't mean to imply that District 207 voted on the opposite side. They don't currently have a seat at the table. So they have petitioned, or they are going in the process of going through that and getting a seat at the table, which I think would be positive. Des Plaines was another one, as I'm kind of talking, remember, Des Plaines was another one that voted had similar interests with us. So again, I think District 207 would be an ally as well. Clearly, they're going to vote how they're going to vote, but their concerns are our concerns. But, yeah.
Thank you.
Historic Preservation, Alderman Schubert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have two items this evening that relate to the landmark applications for the properties at Prospect Park. And before I go through them, just want to mention that there's a number of folks here tonight from the Historic Preservation Commission, the Park Ridge Historical Society, and the Park Ridge Park District that would probably be happy to answer any questions that anyone has on these landmark items. So with that, the first one, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of an ordinance designating 721 North Prospect Avenue, the Solomon Cottage, as a Park Ridge landmark.
Second.
Thank you. Jim, do you have anything to add in terms of the cover memo?
Not really. I think right. I'd just like to point out there were two applications on two properties, and it's 3 buildings. This first ordinance has 1 building, the Solomon Cottage, and the next property, which is 733, would be there's 2 buildings on that property.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll go out to the audience. Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, and back to council for comment.
Alderman Mazuka?
Yes.
Alderman Joyce?
Yes.
Alderman Moran?
Yes.
Melissus?
Yes.
Wilkening?
Yes.
Schubert?
Yes.
Milladosian?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and then the second one, I'd like to make a motion to approve the first reading of an ordinance designating 733 North Prospect Avenue, the Wohlers and Emery buildings, as a Park Ridge landmark.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none, out to the audience. Any questions or comments from the audience? And back to council. Roll call.
Alderman Joyce?
Yes.
Alderman Moran?
Yes.
Melissus?
Yes.
Wilkening?
Yes.
Schubert?
Yes.
Milladosian?
Yes.
Mazuka?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And that concludes historic preservation.
Thank you very much. Procedures and Regulations Committee, Alderman Wilkening.
No report.
Thank you. Public Works, Alderman Moran.
No report.
Okay. Thank you, sorry. Public Safety Committee, Alderman Milidosian.
I'd like to make a motion to extend the contract for the fire department uniforms to On Time Embroidery, Inc. of Elk Grove Village, Illinois.
Second.
Any background, Jeff, that you want to give? I mean,
I think this came back because it passed out of committee with 1 no vote, so that's why you see it again.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, out to the audience, any questions or comments on this? And back to council for final comment. Roll call, please.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Melissus.
Yes.
Wilkening.
Yes.
Schubert.
Yes.
Melodosian.
Yes?
Mazuka.
No.
And Joyce.
Yes.
6-1.
Thank you. Anything else, Alderman Milidosian?
Nothing else at this time.
Thank you very much. Finance and Budget, Alderman Mazuka.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve final reading of the prevailing wage rate ordinance for the 2017 prevailing wage rates.
So
Have a
moved.
second.
Second.
Thank you. You can have this discussed by the city attorney if you want. My understanding is that there actually are penalties if you don't approve this based on the memo, but Adam, if you'd like to add any color to that, go ahead.
Year in and year out, there are some public bodies who wish to protest and send a message. Year in and year out, the General Assembly ignores those messages and sustains the Prevailing Wage Act. The Department of Labor has actually updated the rates that apply in Cook County for the first time in almost 2 years. They were recently published last week, in fact. So they are up to date, and
They go down?
they went up a little bit. So, the city basically has 3 things to do under the Prevailing Wage Act: adopt the ordinance, give notice of its application to contractors, and keep records. And that's it. So this is 1/3 of the things you have to do. In conjunction with adopting the ordinance, we have to file it with the Department of Labor by July 15th.
Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, out to the audience. Any questions or comments from the audience? District, you guys are experts on this conversation, aren't you? That's right. Seeing no questions or comments, we'll come back to council for final comment. Alderman Melissus.
So, I'm sorry, but I'll go back to questions if I may.
Absolutely.
So I had one question for the city attorney. So it says here in the cover memo that there could be penalties imposed under the statute. Do we have any, is there any history on this, any precedent? Has it happened anywhere where city or municipality voted against it and got in hot water with the state?
So in the event the city fails to adopt the ordinance and one of its contractors, in fact, does not pay prevailing wage, then the fact that the city failed to comply with the law would make it subject to paying the underpaid salaries and penalties and interest on the unpaid salaries.
I'm saying, has that ever happened?
Yeah, it
anywhere?
has happened.
Okay.
I can't cite chapter and verse
No, no,
of it
no,
happening,
but-
but there are communities who have been held liable for failing to enforce the Prevailing Wage Act.
And this was circuit courts that decided this, or? So in other words, does it
There's
turns
precedent.
into litigation, is it civil litigation, or goes to court, like with,
Initially, the Department of Labor has the power to issue administrative penalties, and then if there's a defense, the municipality has the right to administrative review.
okay. Thank you.
Adam, if I could just, I think I asked this question once before, but, so you kind of described one way that the city could face penalties if we don't adopt it and one of our contractors doesn't pay the rate. Is there a penalty? Because we could work around that by just requiring certain things contractually, I would think. But could we be subject to a penalty simply by, even if those circumstances didn't come to fruition, just by not adopting it? Could we face sanctions, penalties, fines, what have you?
In order, well, the law is written that the prevailing wage ordinance you adopt is read as a condition of the contracts you let for public works. And so if you don't have a prevailing wage ordinance, you don't have that device to read into the contract as a condition of payment of the contract terms. And so it's a.
Yes, we could get in trouble.
So, you know, if, in the event, I mean, I guess if the prevailing wages end up getting paid on every public works project and there's no harm, then the city would not be subject to penalties. But if you adopt the ordinance and give notice, it's an absolute defense.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We're back to council for questions or comments. Anybody else? Okay. Roll call, please.
Alderman Melissus.
No.
Alderman Wilkening.
No.
Alderman Schubert.
Yes.
Milidosian. He's not here at the moment.
He's here.
He's here. Thank you.
Present?
He was the only nay vote last week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wazuka.
Yes.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes,
Yeah,
and 2 no.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item, move to approve the first reading of an ordinance opting out of the Cook County minimum wage and sick leave mandates.
Second.
Thank you. The memo is from Mr. Supan, but I think we've talked about this at committee. Unless the city attorney or the city manager want to add anything to this, I think the memo is self-explanatory. Also, the letters that we had referenced at the previous COW meeting are up online. I checked that earlier tonight. So if you'd like to see where District 60, or what District 64 weighed in with last time, what Park District weighed in with last time, it's out there, but I think we have some people in the audience who may choose to weigh in tonight as well. So with that, that's the setup.
Did everyone, along those lines, did everyone get the letter from the union? Or can we add that as well to the online? Yes. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, out to the audience. Any questions or comments from the audience on this? Okay. And back to council for comment. Yes, Alderman Joyce.
I don't recall getting the letter from the union. Could someone explain what that contained?
They didn't know you existed till.
I understand.
Be somebody, it's on your car. It's on your windshield. Just a pro.
Here's a copy right away.
I just don't want to be left out.
You won't be.
How lucky you are.
Yeah.
All right, you gotta read that fast, or somebody's gonna come up with some questions or comments.
It's not hard to get the gist.
Anybody have any final comments? Yes, Alderman Moran.
I've been active on social media with a few folks in town on this, and I just want to make it very clear that my main issue with this is that I don't believe it's the county's responsibility or job to be making this matter theirs. I feel it's better handled by state or federal level. I'm not opposed to the increases per se, but I feel like this is sort of a very choppy job of trying to accomplish something. And there's certainly a better, more phased-in, all-inclusive way of doing it that makes for a less confusing and smoother path to creating this livable wage. And that's the main reason I'll be voting no on this, is I don't like the legislation. I don't like who it's, or the body that's presenting it to us, and I feel it's our duty to opt out this time around.
To clarify, you'll be voting yes on the ordinance?
Yes, so I will be voting yes on the ordinance to opt out.
Yes.
Don't like it.
Yes, on the ordinance to opt out for many of the same reasons that Alderman Moran cited. This is just a very messy implementation of what is not an unreasonable idea. And we've seen that come through this body a number of times, ideas on the national stage, or, you know, other levels of government that are reasonable, and reasonable people can disagree about whether those are the right thing to do or not. But a city government at on a municipal level is not the best way to address it. Also, I would point out that as Chicago has already passed a higher minimum wage, we are competing. They are on our doorstep, and you have seen wages, I assume, go up accordingly as our businesses have to compete with the folks just on the other side of Higgins. There is a sign at McDonald's that says that they are hiring for $10 an hour right now, so they're already paying over the existing minimum wage. And I would expect as Chicago's minimum wage goes up, we'll see, just as a matter of competition, that our businesses will have to pay up to compete. So we'll get part of the way there without having to deal with this very messy implementation brought to us by the Cook County Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. And again, just to clarify, if you were in favor of opting out, you were voting yes on the ordinance. Not to tell you how to vote, but just to clarify what that means. Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Alderman Wilkening.
Yes.
Alderman Schubert.
Yes.
Maladosian.
Yes.
Bazooka.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joyce.
Yes.
I'm sorry. This is a new sheet, I didn't have your name on it. Moran.
Yes.
Yes. Ulysses.
Yes.
Motion passes.
That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Mazuka. New business. None?
Motion to adjourn to closed session.
Yeah, and then I'll entertain, Alderman Moran made a motion.
To adjourn to closed session
Second's already mentioned.
for the reasons mentioned previously.
Second.
All right, can we just do a voice vote?
Roll call again.
We need to do a roll call on this, so can we do a roll call?
Do another one. Alderman Schubert.
Yes.
Maladosian.
Yes.
Mazuka.
Yes.
Joyce.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Ulysses. And Wilkin.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Melissa said yes to it.
All right, everybody voted yes. We're gonna take 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and close session.